Today I want to talk to you about one of the most useful questions that you can use if you want to become a better thinker, also become a better problem solver, and if you want to become a better people helper. Hey guys, a lot of people sometimes have misperceptions sometimes about what NLP is, what it isn't. Personally, from my point of view, I'm not too concerned with labels, and I'm more concerned about process and what somebody can do when they have used the process, techniques, applications of NLP. Because when you use it, that's when you actually get the result. That's when your life gets better. Today I want to talk about one of the most powerful questions, and one of definitely the most useful questions that you can ask yourself if you want to become better at pretty much most things. This question is a question that's at the foundation of a lot of the work that you're likely to do when you're interacting with other people. Because when you're communicating with other people, if you're in a change situation, or if you're working as a hypnotist, or if you're working in a professional context as a business professional, when you hear somebody else speak, they tell you about their problem. What they're sharing with you is not the world per se. What they're giving you, if you come back to one of the key and first presuppositions in NLP that you should definitely take on board, is that the map is not the territory. If the map is not the territory, meaning, and if you don't know what that is, check out this video when I talk more about that. But if the map is not the territory, then when somebody communicates, it could be a professor, a doctor, a CEO, a mum, a dad, you name it, that everybody who communicates and speaks, what they're sharing is their map or model, the representations, the conclusions, the summaries that their best thinking oftentimes has come to conclude or believe is the case about the world out there. Now, this is true for all of us, from the president down to the pauper. Everybody goes through this process, which is that when they communicate and when they share, myself included, what you're hearing is a description of the representations of my map or model of the world, how I'm thinking right now, etc. And so, what you want to do, especially if you're a people helper and you're helping somebody overcome a difficult problem or a challenge, or in a business context, or you're a parent and you're trying to become more effective when, I don't know, minding your child, that you ask yourself this question, okay? So when you want to help somebody and they've come to you and they've described a situation or problem, just ask, how do you know? So, I'll give you an example. Somebody comes to you and they say, I can't get a date because everybody says I'm ugly, okay? Now, when they say that, they're absolutely adamant and believe that the reason that they cannot get a date is because they are ugly. And therefore, they conclude, especially if they're a guy, I suppose, and they don't think there's much they can do to groom or change how they look, etc., that they're never going to get a date. And so we have an experience. Somebody went out, they put themselves on a few websites, let's just say is the story, the process that they went through. They didn't get the result that they wanted, i.e. they either didn't get any likes, or perhaps they did get some likes and some action on Tinder in terms of a communication, maybe that was going back and forth, but it never led to a date. And somewhere along the line, it may be an exchange, it may just be a thought inside in their head, they've come to the conclusion that they can't get a date because they're, quote, ugly. Now, if you're in a people helper capacity, if you take them at their word and frame it as the problem, their dating issue is because they're ugly, then you're automatically restricted in the options. You're going to try and treat this as an ugly problem rather than a thought problem. And in fact, neither of them in this case may be the issue. It may be, for example, that it's not that they're ugly, it's that they got a crappy personality, or that they come across and they communicate, they're very coarse, or they haven't learned social skills to be able to interact and make it appealing for somebody else to go, you know what, why don't we move this from the point of view of just chatting on the phone here to why don't we meet up and go get a coffee? You see how that the problem may not be the problem that they say. This is true for everything. A description, you're watching something on the news and you're hearing a conclusion, an utterance that somebody is saying. Well, a good thing to keep in your mind is, how do they know? And what you'll hear if you ask somebody, how do you know, is they're going to give you typically a because. And if you're familiar with NLP, you'll know that right now, from a meta model point of view, that we're looking at their mind reading pattern, and directly beneath that, we've got the cause and effect. So the mind reading is concerned with somebody making a claim to knowledge, all knowledge in this case that they espouse or claim. They have some way of knowing that, and there's a cause-effect relationship going on. So what this means, and what allows you to do, is to tune up your ear. So when you're interacting with somebody else and they say, this is my situation, this is a problem, whatever, and you go, how do you know? Is you begin to hear their logic, their thinking, the thoughts that are allowing them to come to that conclusion. Now, by the way, they may be bang on and completely right about the conclusion they've come to. But typically, and especially when somebody is coming to you with a problem or situation or a challenge, or even yourself, when you're having challenging in your own life and you're going, this isn't working, I'm not getting the promotion I want because my boss is an asshole, for example, that it's very useful to ask yourself, how do you know? Because what you're bringing to the foreground, what you're bringing in front, is your thinking. Or if you're asking this and you're helping somebody else, their thinking. And then by paying attention to that, you can begin to go, is that really the way it is? Is that exactly, definitively, the truth? And what you'll find is that, in fact, there may be other things that are going on, that's just one way, that's one perspective of looking at it in that way and coming to that conclusion. And by beginning to ask this question, how do you know? You tend to free things up. Things become a lot more fluid and dynamic, and you realize that actually it's not this little box that you thought it was, or a client thinks that their problem was that. It may be that they didn't realize that, as I said, in a dating context, that they were coming across inappropriately or in a way that wasn't building rapport and establishing a connection. So take this question and use it on yourself, your internal process. Anytime you hear yourself saying an incantation or a phrase, a bit of internal dialogue, everybody has their own version of things that don't support you, that don't enable you to be the best person that you want to be. You know, it may be, for example, you hear yourself saying, I'm lazy. Yeah, you say, I want to get out of bed, I want to go run, and you don't. And so rather than patterning and figuring out, okay, what exactly is going on there and how am I producing that result, because that's what it is, it's a result. It may not be a result that you want, but it is a result, it's an outcome that you actually have produced. In that case, is ask yourself, well, okay, if you're saying it's because I'm lazy, go, how do I know is it that I'm lazy? How do I know? And I go, well, because I don't get out of bed. Okay, so you're lazy because you don't get out of bed. Is that the only possible reason why you may not be getting out of bed? Could it be, for example, your alarm didn't go off? Could it be that you're going to bed too late and you're extremely tired or you're exhausted, and as a consequence, when you wake up, you don't have the energy, for example, to get out of bed? There are a million different ways that you could look at that, and then, of course, using the other tools in NLP, stuff like desired state, present state, and resources, getting clear on those, and you can check out some of the other videos. I'll include some at the end of this video. You can begin to problem solve in a much more effective way. Because if you are framed in to that, the way the person is describing it is the way that it is, then you're constrained by those descriptions as to what options or possibilities there are for things to be different. So, ask yourself the question regularly, how do I know? When you watch stuff on TV or on YouTube and you hear somebody make a claim, and it could be any claim, yeah? With these days, with everything that's going on in the news and with President Trump in office and whatnot, there are plenty of things that are certainly getting in the headlines, and people are making some interesting claims. Ask yourself the question when you hear those, how do they know? And of course, you can begin to look at, is it credible? Are the sources? Is the evidence beneath that? Is it credible? Are the conclusions sound? Are the premises sound? If you have a background and interested from the point of view of logic. But you could even just go, how do they know? And oftentimes the person doesn't know. Or they say, well, I tried it once and it didn't work. And now they've generalized it to mean every time and everywhere. And that may just be complete nonsense. So if you're in a people helper capacity or you want to help yourself become more effective in being the kind of person you'd like to be, ask yourself this question. Hey, thanks for watching the video. If you liked it, hit the subscribe button below. And even if you didn't, hit the subscribe button anyway. You may find I've got a new video coming that you do enjoy.